To optimize the camera for taking pictures of portraits, you may want to use the Portrait Scene mode. For more control over the camera's functions, you'll want to use the Aperture Priority mode instead. You may want to use the flash, in which case you'll want to know about the flash exposure compensation. You might want to set the ISO, and as always, you'll need to set an appropriate white balance. Let's start by setting the Portrait Scene mode. Turn your mode dial to SCN. Use the control dial to choose Portrait as the scene. Now the camera is optimized for taking pictures of portraits. In this scene, however, you'll notice that the focus is set to Face Detect, which means if the subject is not looking straight at the camera may not find the focus point you want. You can set the focus point to center if you want by going into the main menu. For more control over functions such as ISO and white balance, I recommend using the Aperture Priority mode instead. Set the mode dial to AV. Aperture Priority allows you to set the aperture you want to use, while the camera sets the appropriate shutter speed. To set the aperture, use the lens ring in the front of the camera. I want to set a wide aperture so only the subject is in focus and the background becomes blurry. So I'll turn my lens ring until the aperture is set to f2.0. Now you might want to zoom in a little bit so the subject doesn't turn out so distorted. So I'll zoom in and you'll notice that the aperture changes. This is fine, f2.8 is still okay. Now I want to use the flash in order to eliminate shadows in the subject's face. Press the flash button right here, or the right navigation button, and use the control dial to set the flash to on. Give it a second to go away or press the set button. Now depending on the distance of the subject from the camera, you may want to increase or decrease the power of the flash. I recommend keeping this set to its default strength and taking one picture to see whether you'll need to change the strength of the flash. To change the flash strength, press the function button right here in the center and go down to the flash exposure compensation function right there. Now use the control dial to increase or decrease the power of the flash. Usually if the subject is farther away, you'll want to increase the power of the flash. Likewise, if the subject is closer, you'll want to decrease the power of the flash so you don't over-brighten the subject. I'll keep mine set to 0 for now. Set the appropriate ISO by going up to the ISO function, and here too use the control dial to set the ISO you want. If you're outdoors and there's plenty of light, you can set the ISO to 80 or 100. If you're indoors, or it's a cloudy day and there isn't a whole lot of light outside, then you want to increase the ISO. A higher ISO setting will create a slightly more grainy or more noisy image, so you want to set the lowest possible ISO for your scene. I'll set mine to 80, assuming we're outdoors and there's plenty of light. Now I'll go down to the white balance function and set this appropriately. Again, use the control dial to change this setting. Choose daylight if you're outdoors on a bright day. If it's a cloudy day or if you're in the shade, choose cloudy to warm up the tones in the image a bit. If you're indoors, you probably want to set the flash white balance because the flash is what's going to illuminate your subject. I'll choose daylight and press the function button to escape the function menu. Now with the flash set, my aperture is properly set, my white balance is properly set, and my ISO is properly set, I can go ahead and take my picture. Place the focusing square over the subject. Press the shutter button halfway to lock focus first. When the focusing square turns green, you know the subject is in focus. Now, you can recompose the image to place the subject where you want him in the frame. Then, press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture.